We're welcoming back on the Second Swing Thoughts podcast, Jake Montgomery, fitting manager from the Minneapolis store. And today we wanted to cover, what's been working for golfers in the fitting bays at various swing speeds. Specifically, we're going to talk about high swing speeds today, Jake. So I guess I don't even know if I have a number of what the driver swing speed would be. I know that you probably have a number in mind of what you would consider high speed, probably for sure 105, 110 plus.
I would say 110 is kind of where I consider you start being like a high-speed player. I mean, I'll still fit guys at 105 and extra stiff. You're not moving it slow.
Right. I mean, to a degree, that's a little bit more. I mean, there's tempo involved instead of not just swing speed, but 100%. To your point, yeah.
I would say once we start crushing or passing 110 to, especially like 115, if you're 115 plus, you hit the crap out of the ball.
Yeah.
So that's when we're really considering you are a very high speed player.
Right.
If you hit the 120s, you're faster than PGA Tour average. So congratulations.
Yeah. There's actually, I think we're seeing a lot more of those players than we think because, with this influx of how the game has grown a little bit, you're seeing a lot of these, maybe high school kids and college kids picking up the game that are just athletes. And they're coming into the game with a bunch of swing speed already. So, but with that said, let's talk about drivers that you've seen work with really high speed players. And these could be, could be a really, really skilled high speed player, or it could be a high speed player like I kind of just mentioned that maybe is relatively new to the game, but still needs something maybe to reduce spin and control the ball flight. Yeah.
I mean, I would say by a wide margin, GT kind of stands on its own as far as high speed goes. It is really, really good at controlling spin, which for most of the high speed players, that's kind of their main issue.
Yeah.
The faster you swing, the more spin you're going to generate, especially on any kind of a heel miss. That spin rate's going to balloon like crazy. It's not always necessarily in the GT3. I've fit plenty of high-speed guys into a GT2. We were just talking about previously, Cam Young is playing a GT2, and that just kind of is for helping with dispersion. The GT2 is still a fairly low-spin head, and when I can add some weight into that head as well, it can kind of help bring that down. And then the GT3, if a guy's more cross, a little steeper on the ball, again, I mean, that's just a phenomenal driver, and they're very fast off the face, but for a high-speed player, that's not what we're chasing. But they're very controlled. The misses go very straight. We're not seeing a ton of gear effect out of them. They just perform really, really well for a guy that swings really hard at it. I would say after that, would probably be looking at Callaway Elite Triple Diamond. That has been another one that's just been really good at managing spin. For these higher speed players, we just don't want to see peak height out of nowhere climb up to 150 feet in the air.
Right.
Because that's one that if there's any kind of wind or they leave the face open, it's going to get really squirrely really fast. So it's all about just kind of minimizing spin, flighting it down, keeping it in the fairway.
Yep.
I would say that those two drivers are kind of on an island as far as high swing speed players.
Yeah, and I think the adjustability that you get to, especially with the GT drivers, has to help a lot too, because you can address a couple different needs with, whether it's the club head design, whether it's the adjustable hosel, or in case with the GT3, you have the center of gravity weight shifter there as well. So you have all these options to really find, if someone has a bunch of speed, but they also have a lot of spin and they have this kind of slice tendency, you can address all of those issues with one sort of build and spec that the GT3 can provide. So,
and I can't overstate as well, having the weight kits in our bays is so helpful. Just being able to, if we want to go short on the shaft, we can increase the head weight so we don't kind of throw off swing weight. Or if we want to put more weight in the back to launch it higher, or put more weight in the front to launch it lower, it's very, very helpful.
Yeah. That's kind of where you almost thrive. You're like a mad scientist, trying to figure out, that's exactly where you guys are in your element. So with that said, let's go to the Fairway Woods here. So this is, same golfers, but in the Fairway Woods. And if you want to bring in a mini driver, that's fine with me too, if there's one that stood out. But mini driver or Fairway Woods that have been super successful for higher speed players.
Yeah, I mean, as far as mini drivers go, I'd say R7 has been very, very good. GT280 has also been good for the right player. If someone is looking for more of a 3-wood style club to hit off the tee, they're currently hitting 3-wood off the tee and they just want a 3-wood that goes a little further, that's it. I mean, it looks like a 3-wood and everything. But otherwise, for a fairway wood, I would say QI35 LS. The Tour. I don't know if there's anything really close to it right now.
Really?
Maybe the Ping G440 LST, but I just go back to I was fitting a coworker of mine who swings very hard.
Yeah.
He was swinging a a 3-wood at about 113 miles an hour.
Yeah, that's fast.
And he's slightly up on it, a little across. So, I mean, his swing is designed to hit the ball 1,000,000 feet in the air. And the QI35 was the only thing that could get his peak height down, flatlined his spin, didn't lose any ball speed, just hit it really, really straight. He's been looking for a club like this, he said, all his life. So it was fun to kind of find something that he could actually hit off the tee that wasn't his driver. And then we actually ended up going with a hybrid that matched. We'll get to that in just a second there. But yeah, I mean, I would say the QI35 Tour, far and away the best fairway wood I've seen so far for high swing speed players.
Yeah. Okay. That's fascinating because I think they've played around with that like heavy weight in the sole with the Tour model. They've had was it the Stealth or the Stealth 2 Plus that originally had that?
It had a plate on
that, like 50,
the Stealth 2 had the slider.
The slider, the 50 gram like thing that's a lot of weight. And then over the years that's kind of evolved, and now you can like flip it around or something like that.
That's what I did.
So you can get it, if you need to move it super far forward, you have to flip it around and get it way up there. But so clearly that works for these high, and I can get it. If you get more weight forward, right, it kind of keeps the ball as a penetrating 100%. Ball flight. So, all right, so now let's talk kind of hybrids and utility irons. We'll sort of mix them into one, and maybe you can give an option for both. But again, high speed players, you're kind of in this spot of the bag where you need to gap something as well as control the ball flight. What are you looking at here?
Yeah, so I would say on the driving iron side, Strixon for the last few years has kind of been my number one option. The Ping Eye crossover is not far behind. I love the adjustability in that club. I would just say it's a little higher spinning than the Strixon is. So it, depending on kind of what we're looking for, that will determine, are we going Strixon, are we going Ping? Although, I mean, Johnny Brodzinski, I handed that Mizuno Fly High, and he just absolutely flushed it. I would say that the driving iron portion is much more open maybe than the rest of the categories in the bag, because it's much more like an iron fitting than it is kind of anything else. Where, I mean, driving irons as a whole don't have a lot of spin.
Yeah.
So I'm not really worried about any of them going crazy spinny.
Yeah.
But I would say Strixon's, like, if I had to pick one only, it'd be that. But I mean, you got your eye crossover, you got your Fly High.
Yeah.
There's some good options out there.
Sure.
I would say as far as hybrids go, for a high speed player, I mean, it's rare I put someone in a hybrid, but when I do, it's going to be the GT3 or the TaylorMade QI35.
Okay.
Both of those are really good at kind of flighting things down. They launch really low, which is great because depending on the ball flight a player's looking for, if we can launch it low and spin it a ton, it still doesn't peak at like 140 feet.
Right.
But it lands so soft. Or if we can get 5,000 spin, but it's launching at 9 degrees, and we're carrying it about 230, 240, we're hitting the number we want with plenty of spin, but which is something a little more forgiving than an iron.
Right, and actually with that, that's kind of like, you hear all the time with drivers, high launch, low spin, right? That's kind of the combination. But in a way, low launch, high spin can be kind of a great way for a high speed player to,
for sure.
Maximize the control that they have over this type of club. If they launch it low, but they get the spin where it's not ballooning super high and the wind isn't grabbing it and taking it somewhere, you can still hit the ball how you swing naturally and get some benefits out of it. So, that's a good couple models there. And that's a good note you made about the utility irons being, most of them, if all of them are low spin, because that's the whole point for those clubs. As a player that has, is looking for this off the tee maybe, or is somewhere where they need to gap something right, but a hybrid or even a high lofted wood is just way too much spin and loft and height. Bring that down. Get something that can launch in the appropriate window for them. Irons now. Let's wrap up with irons in the high speed category. So I don't know if you want to hit multiple categories here or not, because there's probably not a ton of players that you fit that are a lot of speed but maybe need a game improvement iron. But if there is, if you've got one in your mind, you can relay that. Otherwise, I'm sure there might be a player's iron.
So that is probably the hardest fitting I'll do, is a guy with a ton of speed but needs something forgiving.
Yeah.
I will never give them a game improvement iron because they catch one and it goes 210.
Yeah, right.
We just don't need that. I would say the iron that I honestly probably sell most to that player is a ZXi5. Okay. Like I said in a previous video, that one's especially is forgiving, but it's not like super jumpy where all of a sudden you're going to hit a low spinner and it's going to go 15, 25 yards further. I would say that or the Mizuno JPX 925 Forged. Both of those are really good for high-speed players in terms of bringing or managing the height. I mean, they're going to hit it high no matter what at how fast they're swinging. But it just it's not 220 and then 175. Distance. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I would say for your moderate to better player, T100, T150, or the Strixon ZXi7. The three of those are fantastic. They all launch fairly low, and they spin pretty consistent, which, again, like I said before, it's all about kind of managing that height. The T150 will go a little higher than the other two, as it just has a wider sole and a little deeper center of gravity. But for a high-speed player, I just don't want to see that land angle at 55 plus. I don't want to see the peak height at 130 plus. Because if they play in any kind of wind, they are going to have a really, really bad day.
And then again, for high-speed players, I mean, as a general rule of thumb, do you kind of recommend the idea of comboing stuff, like even like T100, T150, or is it kind of like based on how they're hitting the ball sometimes? Because
it really depends on ball striking.
Yeah.
If I'm fitting a college player that has a lot of speed, I'm not worried about splitting their setup.
Right.
As long as they're not. If they tell me that they have issues with gapping at the top end of the bag, we are absolutely going to combo set that. But I mean, like when I fit Jake Olson, I asked him, like, are you okay going with this all the way through the set? And he's like, oh, I wouldn't mind having a little bit more in my 4-iron. So we went with the P7CB there, and then the MBs the rest of the way down. But again, I mean, that's not a crazy big iron in that 4. So it really depends on kind of player feedback. I will hand them, because we do have some sets that are bonded in our tour van where I can hand them a 5-iron that matches the set that they're going to buy, and have them hit it, and we can kind of see how that gap plays out. But I would say it's really on a kind of a player-to-player basis.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, because that is interesting that with high-speed players, it's funny to hear you and how much different sometimes you have to approach things based on swing speed alone. Yes. And I know that the first few minutes of that fitting, you're getting all these notes from just asking some questions. But yeah, some fascinating, I guess, results or feedback from you on the best options for high-speed players there.